Hello guys, today I'll show you one of the most brilliant games that was played in the 20th century. So this game was played by Bobby Fischer and by Donald Byrne in 1956. So at that time Bobby Fischer was only 13 years old and he was a young master, and at that age he already was playing very brilliant games and moves. So I'll show you this game. So we'll watch this from Bobby's side. So Bobby was black and Donald was white. So let's start our game. So Donald played knight of 3, the ready opening. So Bobby copies him and plays knight to f6. This position Bobby plays c4 and Bobby responds with g6. So knight to c3 by Donald and bishop g7 by Bobby, preparing to castle. So d4, so Donald is fighting for the center and brings his pawn to the center, and this is transfers to the king's Indian defense. So Bobby Fischer simply castles, and bishop f4 plays Donald. He takes out his bishop and puts it on a strong diagonal. So d5 is played by Bobby Fischer, and this transfers into the Grunfeld defense. So this is a very interesting opening, and it has complicated ideas. So if you are a beginner, stay away from stuff like this. So in this position, you see Bobby is fighting for the center, and Donald plays queen b3 and takes his queen out. So Bobby takes the pawn on c4 and the queen takes. So this is the Russian variation of the Grunfeld defense. So as you can see, white has already made two moves with the queen, which as a beginner you are told to not to get your queen out before you finished your developing. So white hasn't developed his light squared bishop and hasn't castled yet, but the queen is already out. But as you can see, the queen here is quite strong and controls a lot of squares. So c6 is played by Bobby. Oops. c6 is played by Bobby, strengthening this d5 square. So e4 is played by Donald. He develops his pawn to the center, preparing e5, maybe d5, stuff like this, and also prepares to develop his light square bishop. So Bobby takes his knight to d7, preparing to take him out to b6. So rook d1 by Donald, so a good move by him. He puts his rook on an open diagonal and the rook stares in front of the black queen, and he prepares moves like d5 and e5 and a strong attack in the center. So in this moment you might think that Bobby Fischer is not playing so well, so stick around, you'll see in a very few moves what brilliant moves Bobby played, and there were a lot of brilliant and very interesting moves in this game. So knight b6 Bobby played, attacking the queen. So queen c5, very interesting choice by Donald. So as you can see, the queen already moved 3 times and is chased a lot of times. So bishop g4 is played by Bobby, taking the light square bishop out and pinning this knight to the rook, also preparing this rook to come out, and different ideas. So here Donald plays a quite strange move, bishop to g5, like attacking this knight and maybe preparing e5, the idea that when the knight moves then he could take on e7 and create a fork. But in this position white still needs to develop the light square bishop and castle, get the king to safety, and you'll see how Donald was punished for not doing these things early but striving for an attack. And here is the first brilliant move played by Bobby Fischer, knight to f4. You might think, wait, what? He simply blundered his knight. But then you look at this, and if the knight takes, then you see the knight was guarding the e4 pawn. Now it's unguarded, and after the pawn could take on, you see, you can take the pawn on e4, attacking both the queen and the bishop. And let's say the queen moves, she can't stay on this line and protect the bishop, so let's say queen b4. Here black could take the bishop, and you see after the knight takes you can take this rook, and black is completely okay here. You can count the material and it's okay. 2 4 5, 2 4 6 7. So as you can see, black is crushing here the position because this bishop is very strong and a lot of ideas might come here into place. So very strong attack. So Donald didn't want all this to happen, so instead he simply played the quiet move queen to a3, defending the knight. So Bobby took the knight and the pawn takes the knight. So in this position no one is guarding the e4 pawn, so Bobby simply took this. But here you might think, well, but bishop e7 is a fork. And here Bobby played a second interesting and brilliant move, not caring about the fork, queen b6. He actually allows the opponent to capture his rook, but let me show you what will happen. So if Donald would capture the rook, then he would capture with the bishop, attacking the queen. And let's say the queen moves somewhere to, say, to c1 to guard this pawn, then you can simply take this pawn. And you see, after the queen takes, you can do a pin like this and win the queen. So again, Bobby doesn't fall for these traps because he is a talented grandmaster. He sees all these tricks and thinks why Bobby did a move like this. And of course he sees the variation that I'm showing you right now, and he plays a solid move, bishop c4, preparing to castle and play solidly. So let's say now rook to e8, then Donald will simply castle and play with a good advantage. So in this position Bobby must do a forcing move. He must force his opponent to move. Forcing moves are captures, attacking a piece, and a check. So we can't really do a check in this position. We can attack a lot of pieces, but we can also capture the pawn on c3, and that's what Bobby Fischer did. And the queen can't take the pawn right now because rook e8 would pin the bishop because he isn't guarded anymore. And let's say queen tries to guard it, then after queen c7 or bishop to f6 or f8, this bishop would be lost and white and black simply won a pawn. So in this position Bobby again doesn't fall for this trap and plays bishop c5, attacking the queen. And here Bobby doesn't even care about this and plays rook to e8 check. So it's a forcing move and the king must move. So only move that is okay is king to f1. And here this is the brilliant move of the century, maybe one of the most brilliant moves ever. Bobby doesn't even care that his queen is attacked. He could have played a move like knight to b5, like if bishop takes then you simply take and maybe even win a piece because both these pieces are attacked. But instead he played the brilliant move bishop e6. So let me show you what is happening right now. So in this position you can't capture the queen because I'll show you what happened, but I'll show you why you can't even take the bishop. Because in this position this bishop guarded this diagonal where the king is also, and here black would play queen b5 check. If king goes to e1, then queen e2 is checkmate. So if king goes to g1, then knight to e2 check, king to f1, knight to g3, double check. You see double check from both these pieces. Again, king e1 isn't possible, and after king g1, queen f1, sacrificing the queen, the rook must take, and the smoother mate is coming into place, knight to e2 checkmate. So instead in the game Donald also saw this variation and he played bishop take b6, and here Bobby took the bishop on c4 check. King can go only to one place, to g1, and here this is a tactic called a windmill. Knight to e2 check, king goes to f1, and here Knight takes d4 check, so the check comes from the bishop, and again king must move to g1. Here again, knight to check, king to f1, and knight to c3, again a check from the bishop and taking as much pieces as possible. And after king g1, Bobby doesn't take the rook. He could take the rook right now, but instead he plays a b6, the pawn takes the bishop, so attacking the queen and the rook in the same time, so Donald plays queen to b4, attacking the bishop and attacking this pawn. And now, even now, Bobby doesn't take the rook, but instead plays rook to a4, attacking the queen and defending the bishop. And in this position, you could resign at this point, but Donald is continuing to play on, and in this position, Bobby finally took the rook. So you can count the material. So black has two rooks for the queen, knight for knight, and two pieces for the rook that is passive and isn't playing, and 2 4 pawns. So black is up 3 points, as you can see, but we don't care about points, we care here about a winning attack. So h3 is played by Donald to avoid any checkmates like this. So rook takes on a2, getting another pawn. The king moves to h2, giving up another pawn. So knight takes on f2, attacking the rook. Rook goes to e1, offering a trade. So when you have more material, you should always try to trade as many pieces as possible, all the attacking pieces, and basically remove all your opponent's chances to fight back, and basically also simplify the position, and you can convert the position into a win more easily. So that's exactly what Bobby did. He takes the rook and queen d8 check. Only move of Bobby can do right now is cover with the bishop, and now Donald takes the rook and bishop to d5. So the bishop takes a safe place in the game, also staring at this pawn, as you can see, which is going to be captured maybe. So knight to f3, the knight doesn't want to be in the corner, it wants to be active. So here Bobby could trade some more pieces and simplify the position even more, and he has this passed pawns, he could easily win, but instead he plays knight to e4, putting even more pressure on this pawn. So queen b8, attacking this pawn. So b5, as you can see, the bishop protects this pawn and this pawn protects this pawn, so everything is protected and nothing can be done here. So h4 played by Donald. He maybe tries to start an attack, but Bobby shuts this up with h5. So knight to e5 is played by Donald. Right now he threatens to go knight d7 and pin this bishop. So Bobby must react, and he goes king g7, unpinning the bishop. The bishop is now free to move and can go bishop to d6, creating a fork and eventually win the game very easily. So king g1, avoiding this fork. So Bobby could play bishop d6, bishop to d6, forking these pieces and being three light pieces and a rook against the queen, and also having lots of pawns. But instead he played bishop c5 check, and king goes to f1, and this is basically a mate in 5 moves. So this is a mating net, and the white king cannot escape from the checkmate. So knight g3 is played here, king to e1. Now bishop b4 check, king goes to d1. As you see, we are pushing the king towards the corner where it will get mated with two bishop, the rook and the knight. So bishop b3 check, the king has only one square to go, king to c1. Now the knight comes into play again, king b1, knight to c3, and in this position king goes to c1, and Bobby can do bishop a3 checkmate, but Bobby chooses the other option, rook to c2 checkmate. So this is a very brilliant game, as you can see by now, and at 13 years old Bobby was already a brilliant player. and was on his way to become a strong grandmaster and world champion, as you might know. So also we gotta respect Donald, because Bobby Fischer played a lot of tricky moves and tried to trap the opponent, but Donald found all this stuff. By the way, after the game, Donald was asked why he didn't resign in a position in like this position somewhere like here, why he wouldn't resign, but he said that he wanted to respect Bobby and allow him a chance to match him because he played a really great game, and his friends said yeah, go for it, and that's why Donald actually respected Bobby and allowed him to checkmate him in the game instead of resigning, because today all the grandmasters would easily resign in this position because it's like lost it all. So thank you so much for watching this video, and please subscribe and like this video.